Hi, I'm Cindy Blake with GitLab. I'm here to talk about integrating security into DevOps, which is also known as DevSecOps. First, a little bit about me. I've been with GitLab for 3 years, been focused on application security a bit longer than that, and full disclosure, was a programmer right out of college, so had a variety of experiences in the development world. Let's look first, though, at how application security has been done. Traditional programs tend to focus on testing the code right before production. And we all know that that's a problem. Creates bottlenecks, slows you down, is expensive. And, one of the key things that has happened over the last 5 or 10 years is this desire to shift left, meaning move your application security testing earlier. And a part of that too means testing more than just the obvious. And we'll cover that here in just a minute. If you think about shifting left, this means testing with the developers at the point where remediation can happen. Otherwise, if you test at the end, you've got to translate back to the developer, find them, track them down, who can change this, who can fix this vulnerability. We all know the story. It's not pretty. Other dynamics, though, are at play when you think about doing DevSecOps and trying to embed your security into your DevOps program. DevOps is by nature agile and iterative, and security isn't. So it's a bit of a square peg in a round hole problem. You've got policies that need to be automated. So it's one effort to scan the code for looking for vulnerabilities, but you need to automate what happens when you find them as well. And then on top of this, newer cloud native applications bring with them whole new attack surfaces. So looking at just the code itself is no longer enough. You've got containers, orchestrators like Kubernetes, APIs, you've got infrastructure as code, things like Terraform, and all kinds of elements that come to play in addition to the code that you need to be thinking about from a security standpoint. And now for fun, let's just add one more thing on top of that, and that is the new cybersecurity executive order. This is needed because we've had some major attacks, and it's no longer really enough for an enterprise to do their own best effort. So you can expect that while the executive order is focused on vendors, software that is used by federal agencies in the US, you can expect that that's going to trickle down. Just like GDPR trickled down to everybody globally, you didn't have to be a European company in order for it to be relevant to you. I expect this to be the same. Now, people recognize the need to change, that taking the same sort of approach is to changing problems is no longer enough. When they come to us, oftentimes they've already started down the path of shifting left. They may have adopted some incumbent scanners from a long time ago, and they're trying to push that into the CI pipeline and deliver those results to the developers. And what we find is that it's not efficient. So when it might work okay for a set of projects, or maybe for one type of scanner, maybe a dependency scanner or a SAS scanner, but when you try to do multiple types of scanners and across all of your projects, it very quickly becomes unwieldy. So oftentimes we see them after they've tried that path and now they want to simplify. And so having a single platform with the security already embedded greatly simplifies the effort. So efficiency is a key driver here. Another is compliance. They recognize that they need to standardize their CI pipelines and have scans and security measures applied consistently. And so taking a different look at how you do that and really getting kind of working upstream and getting to the pipeline itself. Oddly enough, reducing risk usually isn't the top reason that people are looking to change their application security program. It's usually they've recognized the risk exposure, and they just need to do it more efficiently and more effectively, and more predictably. If you look at the cost of the traditional application security methods, they tend to be cost prohibitive for you to scan all of your code and scan it all of the time. So they also may use a variety of different licensing models. We actually have one customer that said they were spending a half of a full-time FTE just figuring out the license requirements every time they spun up a new project and wanted to apply security scanning to it. So predictability and simplicity is really a key driver here. And so what's required is you've got to think out of the box. I love this quote. This was from a couple years ago at RSA, where the CISO of VMware was a keynote speaker. And he said, your most important security product won't be a security product. It was very insightful for the time and certainly rings true today. You know, as I mentioned, new problems need new solutions. And the CI pipeline is really that new frontier for the security person. It is your software assembly line. It needs to be standardized, protected. If you had an assembly line of cars, you wouldn't let just anybody off the street come in and throw whatever they wanted to on it. You need to protect that assembly line. You need to measure it so that you can improve it. And you need to inspect it and make sure that you've got that end-to-end visibility into who changed what, where, when. Now, the key to doing this is baking security and application security scanning into your CI pipeline and doing it on your feature branch. And let me explain why that's key and critical. As a developer, I check out code, I make changes to it on my feature branch. So I'm not changing what everybody else is working on. I've made a copy and I'm working on it here in my own little sandbox and making the changes. When the scans happen there in my own little sandbox, if I introduce a vulnerability and that vulnerability is found, it tells me that I created it. So it wasn't Sally down the hall that did it. It wasn't Johnny, it was me. I created that vulnerability just now in the changes that I created. And so that is so infinitely more actionable than somebody that comes to you 2 weeks after you've checked in your code and says, oh, by the way, you had this vulnerability you need to go fix. And you're thinking, what was I even doing back then? So it's in the moment. That's just super critical, super important, and key differentiator. When the developer is done iterating on their code and making changes and they get it where they're comfortable with it, they've eliminated the vulnerabilities that they're able to, they check that into the main branch and that code gets scanned again at the point of merge. Now, you want to apply multiple scan types, and this is for defense in depth. With GitLab, all of these are included out of the box, but each one of these brings a little bit different capabilities and findings to the mix. So you need static analysis, you need dynamic analysis, you need dependency scanning, secret detection, license compliance, container scanning, fuzz testing. Fuzzing is really cool for helping you find things that you didn't know to even look for. So most of the other security testing uses known vulnerabilities and signatures to look for things that, you know, if it looks like, smells like, it must be a vulnerability. With fuzz testing, it just throws some random things at it until it breaks. And it kind of blurs the line between what's a security problem and a quality problem, but it can certainly help with things like APIs and things that you just, didn't know what you were looking for to begin with. And then vulnerability management is what ties all of that together. So all of those vulnerabilities that are found from all of these types of scans need to be brought together in one place with a consistent UI for the both for the developer to deal with. Developers wouldn't want to deal with, an application for each of these. Can you imagine if you had to learn Fortify and Veracode and Black Duck and whatever? That would be crazy, right? So pulling it all together into a particular scan type vulnerability report, sorry, and then also having that information available for the security pros to get earlier insight into the risk of the application. A picture's worth 1,000 words here, so I'm going to just show you, it's in your pipeline, in the developer's workflow. So they see, did it compile? They can see the review app. Did my change of my web app manifest itself on the screen like I wanted it to? Now, while I'm talking about that review app, interestingly enough, we use that for dynamic testing. So yes, even the dynamic testing results are available here at the point of code commit for that developer before their code is merged with anyone else's. And it's all in a developer friendly way with drill down, and they can look and see more information, recommendations for fixing the vulnerability, and they can take action. So maybe they look into it and they say, this really isn't a vulnerability, I'm going to dismiss it. Maybe they have a compensating control, or it's a test database, so it's less important, or what have you. They have a reason why they believe that this is no longer important. They can dismiss it and create a note as to why it was dismissed, or they can create an issue if it's something that needs to be dealt with, but maybe not in this particular sprint. The advantage of this is it's simple and it's integrated. And my favorite metaphor for this is the cell phone. If you think about how many times do you use a real camera anymore? You don't. The cell phone not only has a great camera in it, but it's integrated with your social media and with your storage and everything else. You don't have to think about it. This is the same way. You need to put the security embedded in the CI pipeline, embedded in the developer's workflow, so they don't have to think about it. It just happens. At the same time, for the security pro, you need to give them the tools to help them manage risk as well. So that vulnerability report that shows where the vulnerabilities lie, as well as their severity, to help them prioritize. And when everybody's looking at the same thing, both the developers and the security pro have access to that same information, it can help so much with the collaboration and having everybody working together to resolve those security flaws. From a security pro standpoint, when you focus on that assembly line, you focus on the CI pipelines, you can apply automated and consistent security testing and remediation. You get earlier visibility, predictability, collaboration, and really more learning opportunity for the developer so that they're getting the full picture of the results of their vulnerabilities and what's happening. GitLab is an end-to-end solution, but we also are happy to work with incumbents or replace them. We've been replacing quite a few lately, but that shouldn't stop you. Not only on the scanner side, so if you have your favorite scanner, or maybe you have some very unique need for Internet of Things or something that you need to scan differently, we can pull in those scanning results into that vulnerability report for everyone to use. We can also work with non-security vendors. So if you are married to Jenkins or to Jira or whatever, you can open an issue within the MR, just like I showed, open a vulnerability issue and have that sent over to Jira, for instance. The key I want to leave you with is that it is possible to scan all of your code every time there's a code change and make it seamless for the developers using fewer tools, not more. So simple, not more complicated, with everybody on the same page. And as sort of icing on the cake, you can have happy auditors because they can see end to end who changed what, where, when, what policies were applied in an automated fashion, and how those exceptions were dealt with. So I thank you for your time, and have a look at what GitLab can do for you from a security standpoint to help you integrate your security into DevOps.